Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. Welcome once again to the Yes family and the love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. We have once again with us Dr. Alok Pandey, and although in the Aurobindonians family, nobody really needs an introduction to him, but still for sake of good order, I would request Aditi to introduce him.
Welcome everyone. Welcome Dr. Alok Pandey and Alokda, as we fondly call him in the ashram circle. So Alokda is a psychiatrist by profession and a philosopher by temperament. That is how he likes to introduce himself. And not only that, he's a very knowledgeable and gifted speaker who helps humanity by sharing the universal consciousness messages he receives and brings to all of us. And today he'll be talking about the topic man is a transitional being. And welcome once again and looking forward for the session. Over to you, sir.
Namaste. In one of our messages, the mother very significantly revealed that Sri Aurobindo is the luminous future advancing towards its own realization. Now, when we turn to Sri Aurobindo about this future, we see some of his great Mahavakyas. One of them is well known, all life is yoga, meaning thereby that yoga had stepped out of the limited schools, sects, cults, religions, and entered into the mainstream of human life, where every activity had to be connected with the great current which is moving towards the source. This, of course, was the original sense of the word yoga, but later on, with specialization and super and sub-specializations of the yogic paths, we started seeing it change into cults, sects, and of course, its downgraded version was what we call today's religion. So this is one of the Mahavakyas. The second Mahavakya of Sri Aurobindo is, we do not belong to the dawns of the past, but to the noons of the future. So while past dawns are beautiful, of course, dawn is always beautiful, but that's not where we have to turn our face. We don't have to necessarily go back except for nourishment, but we have to look toward the future, the noons of the future, meaning more splendor is awaiting our discovery. The last book of wisdom is yet to be written. The last shloka of the Vedas, if ever there can be a last to infinite knowledge, is yet to emerge from the depths of the human soul. The last scene in the act of the great drama of God is yet to be played before mankind. The eternal word has yet to express itself. There is still more to be spoken, still more to be received, still more to be lived. And that is what makes our youthfulness always ready to receive the new things. The third Mahavakya, which Aurobindo said, which is what I want to take up as today, is man is a transitional being. So very often when we compare Sri Aurobindo to other paths, sects, cults, spiritual approaches, we must understand that there is a very big fundamental difference. So while generally speaking, in all the paths, most of the paths, we recognize that this world is impermanent, we recognize it's transient, we recognize it's dukkham, suffering, we recognize that everything in this world is ever-changing, ephemeral. We recognize man's pitiable state. We don't need much wisdom to see it. And having seen this, there is a way shown through which man can come out of this state, come out of this prison in which he's there. Why he came here, who brought him here, for what purpose he had to go through this long sojourn with pain and suffering as well as joy and all temporary joys and happiness. If the end had to be the same, no one answers that. So this is not what Sri Aurobindo says. Sri Aurobindo says that, well, we are still an unfinished creation of God, but the difference is that unlike the creations that have come so far, we are part artisans in the journey. So for a change, the divine also hands us the brushes. You know that story of Shri Krishna in the Govardhan Parvat, that while he's the one who is defeating Kansa, he's the one who is going to put the main lathi below Govardhan, but he involves everybody around. So we are living in an age when the entire spiritual consciousness is beginning to take more and more a mass movement, not mass movement as we understand in a religious sense, but there is a very, very different kinds of spiritual awakening happening all over the world. And anybody who is looking at the world with little open eyes can see it. It's not always taking the particular path or a particular method or a particular technique or a process. Those things are gone. But there is in human consciousness suddenly a thirst for something greater. It may not even take the word spirit or God, doesn't matter. For something greater, something more beautiful, an aspiration, a seeking, a prayer, call it whatever. But if life could be made perfect, it's like we are carrying within us a dream through the, Amazon jungles or African jungles, or doesn't matter where, or the Arctic Circle, from where man descended, came, journeyed all through, carrying this dream in his heart, the dream of a perfect world. And this dream manifests through centuries and centuries. It emerges, then goes down again. But this dream refuses to die. But now is the age when suddenly this dream seems to be catching hold of the mind of the race in many, many ways. And that's because we are nearing that end of a whole cycle of evolution. That's how Sri Aurobindo puts it. And that we can see there are many, many indicators of that. We are ending a whole evolutionary curve through which nature has gone. And when Sri Aurobindo was asked that, how do you say that, we are nearing the end of a whole cycle of evolution? So he gave certain markers. And this was in 1920s. And one of the things he says, knowledge has burst beyond it has gone beyond the limits and boundaries and the scope of the human intellect to handle. And therefore, either we have to transit into something greater, a greater world, a greater way of knowing maybe, or else we'll collapse because it'll be too much of a burden for the human head to carry. So this was one of the signs. Second is because of the pressure of something greater which is going to come, there is an increasing number of what today can be called as madnesses or abnormalities. People, the new norm is to be not normal. If I may put it as pardon me for saying so, being a psychiatrist, I stand convicted. But it's so true, in the ashram here, you are supposed to undergo a kind of, psychologically you're fit or not. So I asked only one question to everybody, are you normal? And the best reply I ever got is, if I was normal, why would I be here? Meaning thereby that, if a normal person pursues normal aims, normal goals, and what are these normal aims and goals? Roti, kapda or makan. That's what we have been made to believe, unfortunately, that these are the necessities of life. As if life begins and ends there. Nothing more than an animal, except that you dress an animal, you make a nice, neat house for him. People do it with their dogs. But that's not what man is meant for. So this new normal, or many kinds of abnormal manifestations, the mother literally said it in this way, that I'm told that the number of mad people who are increasing. And she says, for the moment it is good. And then she gave a reason. She said they are breaking down the barriers of the old world. So the old world is collapsing. And people who have seen the generations, some of them, they are completely disconcerted. They don't know what is happening. They're distraught. So this is the second or third thing. The third thing is that suddenly we see that the masses of men are rising up. It's no more like there were a few kings and they were the subject, Praja. And Praja had nothing else but to follow what the king said. Suddenly we see that all over the world, there is a mass awakening in various forms. It's taking the shape of revolutions. It's taking the shape of, democracy. It's taking the form of like, I to have a right. All these things are happening all over the world. The fourth is the descent of vital forces, which are leading to, paradoxically, and this is something which is interesting and important to mull over, people who are coming up with immense vital forces which can this way or the other. So this, of course, is during the time of Hitler, and who can completely sway mankind, because these vital forces don't want the new creation. So they are bringing up people, even taking mystic forms, cults, which can completely sway mankind. And there are forces with very immense power within them. So all these things are indicative that something new, something unprecedented is happening in the Earth's history. Now, anybody, when we look at human nature, when we look at the world today and yesterday much more, we see that there is a great turmoil, a confusion, a disorder, and what we call as order is nothing else but a disorderly order. It's like, we somehow manage the house, we are managing things, but the disorder is increasing. And people wonder what is the solution. So on one side, there is the solution that, well, within the frame limits, we have to make it better. Like somebody said very interestingly and beautifully, I think it was Carl Sagan during one of his series, he says, this is the little dot on which we live. This is our family. And therefore, we should make peace with the family. What a wonderful thing it is. But what he left is unsaid is how to make it. We all know it's a family. Why go that far as thinking of world as a family? In a family, brothers within a family, they fight. Hasn't it been true of human over the centuries and millenniums? So it's not enough to say that the world is one family and we are going to have a bond harmony. From today, we'll regard everybody as one family and let's forget everything and come together. That's not the solution, but that's how we look at it, that human consciousness within its frame, within the limitations, whatever is given to us, let's make the world a better place. It's a good aspiration, no doubt about it. But we know its limits and its limitations. Any sensible person can look at it. Take a simple example of healing. Now, doctors want to make the best, even if supposing all the hospitals in the world were giving free medicines, free doctors, everything free. Will it really solve the problem of disease? It doesn't require much common sense to understand no, because the roots of illness will still be there. It will take new forms, new manifestation. You have hospital doctors, unfortunately, they have only multiplied diseases. As someone rightly observed, Nirodha asked Sri Aurobindo, I believe mother is going to build a new hospital. And then she said, dreams of a new millennium. So Sri Aurobindo says, hey, that's not a dream of a new millennium. The dream of a new millennium is when there will be no more hospitals, because man will evolve from within the healing capacities. So these are things which are still in the offing. And there is another thing which we, a path that people have taken, the traditional path, that nothing can be done about planet Earth, nothing can be done about humanity as it is. But yes, we can come out of this humanity, of which we have already spoken, the path of escape, moksha, nirvana, etc., etc. It's a salvation, post-mortem salvation, that if you believe in a certain ideology or a religion, after death, suddenly one day you will be raised up from the grave. Quite a frightening thing if you really try to look at it. And you will be finally judged, God knows by whom. He who condemned us to birth will judge us also. And judge us on what basis? On a single lifetime. And eventually assign us a place permanently in heaven or permanently in hell. Obviously, these are very, very childish doctrines, and one needs to be completely off one's head to believe in it. But there is something which is very interesting that we find in the ancient Hindu thought, and Sri Aurobindo takes a clue from there and goes further. And that there is a continuity of life, continuity of evolution. Even in individual life, there is a continuity. And between one life and another, there is a gap. And that gap is called death. Why? Because we don't know what happens behind the scene. It's like an actor goes behind, changes his dress and comes. Now people see suddenly a scene has changed. Like in a cinema, we don't even see that an actor has gone. There is a sense of continuity, but there are things which have gone on behind and they come back. But yet, if we go behind and that there is a script which all of them are following, then we understand the continuity, that this changing of the scene, the changing of the dress, the mood, the costume was not a random phenomena, but there is a storyline which is going behind every human life. It's very beautifully described in Savitri, that a story from the past has created what we call today as our present fate. But there is the story is not yet finished. What Sri Aurobindo brings out is that this story is still not over, because this story has been planted not by the human soul taking a plunge, because in the beginning there was no karma. How did it enter here? This story has been planted inside the human soul by none else but the divine. It is his story that unfolds in our life. Now we are given the freedom to modify, tweak it a little, but we cannot change the basic story. We cannot change the ending. It's not like those actors who will come and say, no, I want the ending changed. No, ending will be the same. We can little bit modify. Maybe we can say this dialogue, maybe a little bit, we can say, I want this dress to wear. So this is the inner story where there is a continuity. Otherwise, it all appears an absurdity of papa and punya and reward and punishment. Again, one has to be equally foolish to believe that, nothing is happening in this world except papa and punya and somebody is rewarding and punishing, in which case, frankly speaking, most of the human beings I know, including myself, would have no hope for the future. Because, you will realize that there is so much. So who can claim that I am holier than thou? And, for me, the doors of heavens are going to open. All of us have our own difficulties, challenges, defects, errors, prejudices, call it whatever. So, and yet evolution goes on, yet we progress. That's the marvel. So despite the fear of, Sri Aurobindo has beautifully puts in Savitri, a hidden bliss is at the root of things. It grows on forbidden soil. You say that this is forbidden, man will do it, regardless of all the believers in Papa and Punya. So there is something which is compelling, the bliss within things, wanting to disclose itself, first through forms which are perverse, ignorant, limited, until we realize that because it's limited, its backlash follows. There is pain, there is sorrow, suffering, till one day, pain, pleasure, and indifference, a triple disguise, attire of the rapturous dancer on the way. So she sheds these attires and the pure stuff of things, bliss emerges, but on the basis of form. So this is our own story. Then there is a larger story which is taking place. And in Indian thought, it's very interesting when we look at the story of humanity. Why humanity? Why civilization? From earth to man, this story is beautifully recounted in the Bhagavad Purana as the story of God becoming fish, God becoming tortoise, God becoming, Varaha, God becoming half animal, half human. Meaning thereby, again, there is a continuity. The continuity is that these are not random events. They are pre-programmed events. The one Mahavishnu who is sleeping on the, coil of the infinite time, yet determines in his sleep the whole process of creation. At his beck and call, the Anant Nag, which is infinite time, changes the earth from one to another and leads it upward and upward as it uncoils itself. So we see in this world the uncoiling of a tremendous world energy which builds form. So in this story, we see this Dashavatar. This at once a change of consciousness and at once a change of form. The two go together. So one of the beautiful, amazing things about Sri Aurobindo, many, many amazing things, it's just simply amazing to use a modern, just too amazing, is that he gives us the true significance of form. That's why he said, O worshipper of the formless, infinite, reject not form. What dwells in form is he. All forms, all names, all qualities are ways that hidden consciousness to emerge. And because this consciousness is hidden inside, it is trying to emerge step by step. Why through the steps? Because if it suddenly emerges, matter itself will collapse. Just imagine if the tremendous energy inside an atom, if it suddenly said, oh, I am going to emerge. Imagine what will happen to the world. That's what the scientists are trying to figure out. And they figured out, as Sri Aurobindo puts it very humorously, that a scientist played with atoms and blew out the world before God had time to shout. This infinite energy, infinite consciousness, which is hidden inside, infinite existence, emerging step by step, first through matter, and matter itself, what varieties, 108 elements, and God knows how many more. I'm not a fan of just, stopping at a sacred figure. He's infinite. We don't know how many elements exist in creation, in cosmos. Just on the material world, just with the playing of atoms, the master scientist has dispensed so many elements. And look at their combinations. Hydrogen, oxygen combining, and today, we have water, and out of water combining with colors. So many things which emerge out of just the combination of these basic elements. Then again, when we see life emerging, it's there's a riot and revel of the senses. In it, one particular plant, two leaves don't have the same print, and very often we'll see number of colors our eyes cannot behold. Suddenly feel our eyes are so limited that there are so many colors, shades of color, sizes, and this just one twig of a particular plant. Forget about, trees and animals and whatnot. So this consciousness is emerging and it begins to spread widely. And how does it spread? By multiple, many forms. And each form carries a certain, it's a foothold for expressing something. Through the form, it's expressing. And then out of the animal world comes man. So there is inside a continuity. We don't see it. Scientists use the word biological missing links, but that's because things are created. And then when they serve as a footstool, one goes up, and some footstools are kept for the ascending stair and some are knocked off. So this is what we see happening today. That's what is meant by, there are so many suggestions in this one phrase, man is a transitional being. He is not final. He is going to be surpassed. That means something new is going to come. And the mother called it the new race, but not in a racist sense, but in a realistic sense. Whether we like it or not, however much we may say, there is a difference between humans and the animal. Man is a thinking beast, as somebody would say, but he's also an aspiring Godhead. He's a combination of the God imprisoned in his breast and the beast also, which growls in his anteden. He's a combination of that. He holds both in check and leads his life somehow, managing his days and nights. But as he goes further and further, as some of these Indian stories show, every god, which is very interesting, has as his vahana an animal kind. It could be the bird, it could be the bull, it could be the cow, it could be even a rat, it could be anything. So what is this? It's about we become a god as we master the animal within us. So animal within us, each layer which comes in evolution, even between man and animal, there are so many multiple layers. Indian thought saw even human evolution in a graded way. That's why it spoke about the hierarchy of beings. You may not like it, but it's a truth that remains inside. There are seekers of knowledge for whom they are not satisfied with anything. They want more and more and more. They drink experience like a strengthening wine. They drink the infinite like a wine. That's how there are people. On the other hand, there are those with whom any kind of knowledge is like, don't strain, don't burden. This fact exists inwardly. So in man itself, the evolution takes a hierarchical form. Again, in the story of Dashavtar, we see from the Vamana, we see the next, from the nursing, in fact, we see Vamana and then Parshuram, then Rama, then Krishna, and eventually, finally, Kalki, Christ and Kalki, who establishes the kingdom of heaven upon earth. So we see in humanity itself, there are several links which today we have lost, we don't recognize, but they exist because they are evolutionary layers. Rebirth is a process through which the consciousness climbs, and with each such climb, there is a modification even of the body and the form. That's what creates actually, I know one can be condemned to racism, but the fact is that the form changes as the evolution climbs. There are forms which are closer to the ape. It's not to be seen in a pejorative way, because after all, it's the same one consciousness. And very often in the simpler forms, it's so much more visible, but so much, it's, the complexity which comes with evolution, and with it, the form begins to itself shape itself. It's a whole study, which someday somebody will carry out. Mystics know about it. That with Sri Aurobindo, several times you will see that somebody will send, the photographs used to be sent sometimes. And Sri Aurobindo would look at the photograph, and some people, based on the photograph, they were asked to come in or they were asked to stay away. Sometimes Sri Aurobindo would make very interesting remarks. His forehead shows this, but his chin shows something else. And then, it's known, for instance, people talk about the mystic eyes, yogis chakshu, the eyes rolled up. These are known things always. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, He would sometimes initiate after seeing the form. So this relation between the form and consciousness is something very fascinating. Meaning thereby, mere evolution of consciousness is not enough. It will go to a point and then it will not go beyond that. And that it's a recognition of this, because of which the mother gave so much importance simultaneously to the physical education. Because if the form is not ready to adapt, in other words, evolution has two sides, even spiritual evolution. One is the evolution of consciousness. As consciousness evolves, it wants to express itself. Have we not felt sometimes a tremendous love which we cannot express? Words fall short, expressions fall short, and all the smileys and all the messages seem so absurd and limited, because what you are experiencing is something very different. Have we not felt sometimes that knowledge is filling our head? It's about to burst. It's like a whole cascade of light, like a tsunami sea descending. That's how the Vedic rishis would describe. Or something which is revealed in a flash, in a moment. But as Sri Aurobindo says beautifully in Savitri, this was a seed cast in endless time. A seed is sown, the centuries toil to express. The Vedic seers saw something. That's why they were seer. But look at it, till today the expression is going on. They saw something. What was the thing they saw? They saw that there is divine immanent in creation. They saw that the divine one wanted to become many. But eko ham bahusham. But till date, expression is going on. So both must be simultaneously prepared. This is what we see, something another very fascinating in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. We look at Sri Aurobindo, not just a mind which is literally an infinite, it's mind which is a concord of, when I look at Sri Aurobindo's mind, like a little baby sitting here and that infinity, it looks like a master musician is playing an orchestra with infinite chords. And all of them are harmonizing. We'll look at his thought on, that's one of the problems and challenges in reading Sri Aurobindo. There are materialists who loves many things that Sri Aurobindo has written, but they can't swallow that he also talks about God and spirituality and everything. There are spiritualists who are wonderful that he's all about God, but don't like this idea of, divine materialism or matter to be transformed. This they don't accept. This all, There are some, the communists, who love this idea of a divine communism, but on the basis of divine Vedantic communism, no, you omit that. This is fine. Everything you find there, and it's like as if the master musician, the one who conducts the entire process of evolution, is there showing us this note, raise it now, put it down, and then raise another, and all of them bringing together. It's amazing. When we just look at Sri Aurobindo's, just a little glimpse. How can we have the glimpse? Not through our mind, for sure, only through the psychic door. And then when we read his words, it's amazing how he can times a universe in one line. As I said, one line, man is a transitional being. One of them is that a new race is going to come. What a wonderful thing. I'm reminded of this story in our Srimad Bhagavad Puran. See, that story we have all heard, but the new revelations come. So one of them is that there is a prophecy that the 8th son of Devaki is going to kill Kansa, who is his mama. Now look at this prophecy. Everybody receives it their own way. Kansa, of course, puts them in the jail. We see those gory serials where, they are chained, they can't move, terrible situation. Now Kansa is free, he's a king. But from that day onward, he is terrified. He increases, ups the ante. He becomes ruthless, a merciless killer. He was not that bad a person. He was bad, but he was like a despotic ruler. 80% taxation from everybody from Brij Bhumi. His thing was very clear. 80% of Makhan should come to me. That was his evil. And he had his own weakness, lust and ambition. But he became a ruthless killer who would kill a child in this way himself. Why? Because he's terrified, the prophecy. Then equally, there is the Gwalbal. Oh, this fellow is going to die. So wonderful. Let's rejoice. So in Braj, there is wonder, and in Mathura, people are with bated breath waiting for that 8th child. And with every one single child gone, they are waiting expectantly. Look at Devaki and Vasudev, that they are in jail with so much agony and suffering. Yet that there is going to be the divine who will be born from our own womb is something so beatific. It takes away all their suffering. So when we read this Mahavakya, man is a transitional being. We may be in one of the 3 positions. One position is, so the reign of ego is going to end. What will happen to my cherished ambitions, to my attachments, to my ways of life, to my greed, through fear I'm not going to be more specific. We make so much money overnight. Our names are there in the top 10 list where it was nowhere. This terrifies. And because of this kind of consciousness, we see it ups the ante. Like Kansa, it becomes more and more merciless because it knows somewhere that its end is going to come. That's what the mother spoke about, the Lord of Falsehood. She said falsehood has increased. It says, I know I'm going to die. It's exactly the same story like Kansa. Going to die. And die at the hands of a child. Worse still, the psychic being in man, the soul in man is greater than his fate. But I'm going to do as much chaos as I can. And the child smiles and says, or the mother smiles and says, okay. This child will come with this smile, and with this smile, he is going to disarm you. You'll have only one of the 2 options, Kansa or falsehood or the old creation. Either you'll be disarmed and tell the child that I am at your feet, take me to your heights of glory, or you'll be ready to be decimated at the hands of the child. This one response. And we see today, much of the turbulence in the world is part of that response. Human beings consciously don't do it because outwardly we are instruments of forces. But deep inside, the forces are trying their best. This is what happened during the first 2 great wars. The vital forces had stooped upon earth. Now the extreme is gone. Let's be very clear. We are not living in the Second World War era where suddenly, there'll be gas chambers and all that. Let's be very clear. The dark chapter is over. But there will be time to time upsurges where there will be an attempt to derail humanity from its path. But first child, second child, third child, 7th child, Yoga has come to prophecy. Krishna will be there. He's there already. As the mother said, the new world is in its infancy. That's what is the deeper meaning of a vision in 1960 when she sees Krishna in gold, who playfully says, I'm going to sit at your seat. She didn't explain it, but it's so beautiful. And she says, okay. And when Krishna comes, he says, I want to occupy your seat. Says, I'm everywhere, nowhere, in everything, all things. So this is what is going to happen. This Krishna in mother's lap is none else but our psychic being, which the divine mother in her vastness holds. That is the basis of the supramental creation. Sri Aurobindo has given us all this so beautifully. Golden Krishna in the mother's lap. This is the symbol, the psychic being manifesting the gold within and emerging as the new creation. So this is one reaction. But on the other hand, there are those who are like Devaki and Vasudev. Oh, my mind, I cannot understand anything. I don't know. I can't see beyond the prison walls. I don't understand anything. And yet they are living by faith that Krishna will be born, the world redeemer. And the mother says there is to that part of humanity which is born in this age. She says there are those, it has been prophesied that there are those who have faith will be redeemed. She says this is what is meant. There are those who have never read, never known anything about, understood anything about the new creation. But they have faith. They have faith that the divine has assumed a material body, assumes a material body. And because it need not even be that. Just the fact that if divine is present in this world, in each atom of existence, one day this world is going to disclose the divine. This is sheer logic. That if there is divine immanent in creation, then he will manifest himself. This logic. And if you say, but what if the divine is not immanent in creation? Then all this is an illogical paradox. All creation is an illogical paradox. So let's follow logic. We are rational creatures. So this evolution could not be if consciousness were not there. It would not emerge. And if it emerged so far, our dreams indicate the direction in which it should go. And it means that all of us should put all our eggs, not even few eggs. This is a problem. Few eggs in this basket, old. If new creation doesn't happen, let me also follow some path. At least nirvana ticket I will get. Let me try out some method. I'll get some experience. No, sir. New creation is exacting. Measure by measure. It's not a halfway home, because new creation by its very nature means, in Hindi, there's a wonderful term I had heard from Chutnaranji. Let me use that. Amul chul parivartan. Every bit of us has to be transformed. This is the whole process Sri Aurobindo describes in Life Divine as ascent and integration. Each time there is a new door which opens and consciousness ascends. This is a reversal. And as there is a reversal, again, all the past things which were hidden inside, they are taken up and changed. Those who are moving on the path can see it so clearly, which means to be fixed upon anything as the final is to lose the way. The way is an endless progression. When mother was asked, what should we do to, it's too much. We can't read Life Divine and understand all this. What we should do? She said two things. One is, do not cling. But we don't cling, mother. You cling past. We cling to the old way of life. We cling to the body. We cling to our own approach. But I think like this. We cling to our opinions, viewpoints, limited seeing, what not. I met people who, when they, read something from Sri Aurobindo, and it does not go with their set pattern. So they ask very nicely, is it really what Sri Aurobindo has written? Yes, sir. Sri Aurobindo has said so. But of course, if you want to get the full context, read the whole thing. That I always say. You read, go and read yourself, you'll see. But I don't see it. Yes, that's your limit. The limits of my sight are not the limits of light. Excuse me. So what should we do? Well, expand your sight. This is exactly what the Vedas speak of. Increase the sight. How to increase the sight? By getting fire in the eyes. Where does the fire in the eyes come from? By fire in the heart. We become dead people. Mother says at one place that, there are many who are living who are dead. Every child when he's adolescence has this dream of, but I must say that children, when they are born, Putana comes all around. I'm sorry. Oh, mera bacha. He will become a big engineer or this, he will have a car. And earlier they used to say America, thank God America, because they've realized now America has to come here. So at least they say India, mein Hyderabad or Bangalore, he will be there. But this is where the entire, whether we like it or not, Shakti has shifted to Asia, whether you like it or not. This is what we see very clearly happening. But still, so Putana has already given milk, which is going to take him into a stormy relation with the world. But Krishna is Krishna. Eventually, he is going to make his way through all the turbulence and the storms of life. So she said, do not cling. What is today need not be tomorrow. What is tomorrow need not be after a few days. This is the greatest way of renouncing life. This idea of renouncing something outwardly, getting attached to another way of life. I've seen people. Hum to sannyasi hain. We are a sannyasi. Now I'll wear only this one color cloth. Why are you attached to one color cloth? No, I will not even wear clothes. That's even more dangerous. Have a heart, think about people. Don't make a free show. Okay, you believe in something, fine. But there is something called as life around. If you want to do that, be in a cave. It's perfectly fine. Nothing, no, from being what he is within his, four walls. But this clinging can be so vicious. And sometimes a sannyasi who has so-called renounced the world is a lot more attached. They will eat only one kind of food. Should I say or not? I don't know. Vegan, I will eat it. Strictly vegan. And almost to a default. So I have a very simple way. No, we will not take milk. Some people say. I said, see, we are very simple people, not complicated. The mother gives milk in the dining room. We have little choice but to enjoy that milk. And Dugdh, Krishna also gave milk. Now, two avatars have branded it. It's okay. Sometimes some people have an allergy. It's okay. But when two avatars have endorsed it, how can we go? Dugdha is the light, which is symbol of light. But whatever it is, okay, fine. Vegans can be vegans, non-vegetarian can be non-vegetarian, vegetarian can be. The point is not to hold on, to cling. And life is moving forward. Creation is moving forward. If we cling, we will be left behind. That's all. Everything is changing the patterns, and it's changing so fast that it can be disorienting. So this one part, renounce. This is the renunciation in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. Not outer renunciation is not expected. We can wear a t-shirt. We can absolutely, be cool. But inwardly also be cool. And what is meant by that? She says, have a thirst for progress. So one part is the past. Do not cling to anything. Second is have the thirst for progress, meaning thereby not to be satisfied with any experience. This was one of the things which, at least to me, seemed so strange. There are sects which say you will get mukti. So I would sometimes ask, so what happens? So you will sit in meditation, you'll have this vision and voice, this sound, this, and then what happens at the end? You will arrive at Brahman or Parabrahman. I said, so what's the big deal? Of course, I understand it's something fantastic, but there is an end. Finish the last line. You have underscored, and there's the end of the evolutionary journey. And we came for this, to end up on such a sad and tragic note. Sri Aurobindo says, no, there is infinity before us. There is a need within the soul of man. Their glory and debate are the slow prelude of a vaster theme, a preface to the epic supreme. Yesterday we were reading from Savitri, similar things on approaches to the infinite, our faint beginnings. That's it. Of the epic climb. It makes us feel so young. One step solution to remaining, have the thirst for progress. And she says, real thirst. Doesn't matter. You don't have to sit in ashram in a certain post. When will the meditation get over and I can have my water? Thirst. A greater love, more beauty, more truth, more wisdom, more strength, empowerment, Shakti, infinite Shakti. The body to be freed from diseases, old age, everything. Thirst. Where is the end? Each cell should become an abode and temple of the divine. Because almighty powers are shut in nature cells. This is the great plan before us, the great journey, tremendous journey, at the end of which we have divinized matter, a divine life in a divine body. That is what Sri Aurobindo has envisaged and opened the doors. It doesn't matter how long it will take. It's enough. Devaki and Vasudev didn't calculate 8 children means we'll grow so old. Their task was to give birth to this new child. Man's work of works, this is the work of the ascent to the divine life, is the work of works, the sole acceptable sacrifice, without which man will be nothing more than an ephemeral worm that has managed to form himself in a little speck of mud and water, appalling immensities of the universe. Ascent to the divine life. This is what we are here for. And with each ascent, a reversal and integration. So there'll be several successive subspecies, but with narrower and narrower. If you see the evolutionary process, we'll see the gap becomes narrower and narrower. If you see paleontological era, when dinosaurs are there, it takes several billion years. Why? Because consciousness to stabilize in a certain animal form. But with human beings, we see that the evolution does pick up pace. We see avatars also coming more frequently. Nobody knows, when the first Matsya avatar came, Paleozoic era or even before that. But now the avatars comes, the frequency becomes, less and lesser. And of course, as the mother said, Sri Aurobindo is the last avatar. So that's why if we compress time, we will actually very intellectually arrive at the calculation of 1,000 years at the most. And then we will see that there will be several abortive species going to be disorienting. Let's be very clear, fast track. Many things will be left behind before we can catch them. That's how the world will be changed very fast. And those who do not have the faith can find it very unnerving. So we have to hold on to faith and endure. 4 things the mother spoke of when she spoke about the body of the new being, and it applies at every level. One thing she said and stressed is plasticity, suppleness, plasticity, which means not to be rigid about any particular thing. Not to be like, I met another sannyasi who was traveling with me, very uncomfortable. I said, what's happening? I have to do my puja. So do your puja. No, I have to take a bath. Train. So I said, the washroom is there. You can take a bath. No, I must take a bath with the pure water. So where will be the pure water when the train stops on this particular station? I said, sir, are you very sure that that will be pure water? Distilled water is not there. No, at least I'll have satisfaction. So that's not, rigidity. The supramental being will be plastic in terms of thought. Why plastic in terms of thought? The same idea expresses itself in million ways. That's what is meant by the gates of the sun, where a million rays express. Supramental thought is like that. That one idea expresses in multiple ways. There are many multiple possibilities that appear before a supramental being. But we have what is called as a one-track mind. This is the one-track mind, that we only see one thing. And that one thing is everything that is right in front of my nose. That's all. Wall that the nose hits. So this is first aspect. Second thing she said, and mind, heart, life energy, it all. And that's why we see today's rapid transitions through which all this, even the body is being adapted. When mother was asked, mother, will the radiation going to be harmful? So one person said that no. Human body will absorb everything in progress. The other person says, no, the human body will die. So both asked the mother, that mother, which one is true? She said both. And then she explained, human body in its present state cannot. But because the supramental force is working, 72, it is bound to reach a point where it will take all these things and transmute it. So you see what a body this is going to be. Plasticity. Then second level is balance. Now here balance is not given to Caesar what is due to Caesar and given to Rome what is due to Rome. Meaning thereby I will lead an egoistic life, feed the ego as well as, feed. It's not, balance is not that. Meaning thereby all levels it must touch. That's what Sri Aurobindo says in the mother. It's not enough if the mind has illuminations, but the heart remains stifled inside. It's not even enough if the heart opens, but the life energy remains like an animal or a beast. It's not enough if the life responds, but the body remains sluggard. And balance here means all levels it should take place. Third is endurance. Because it's a long journey. There'll be many things, ups, downs. People who have traveled. Thankfully, somebody sent me recently something which I love to quote, Shackleton's Journey, Endurance. I have it on the WhatsApp now and I can pass it on. So it's so fascinating journey. The man who failed, the first man who went to Antarctica mission and failed because the ship broke down. And his grandmother had given the name to the ship Endurance. But all of them survived. It's a fascinating story. And that opened the doors to Antarctica. So very often we say, oh, failures, falls, these are all irrelevant. There will be several. So-called, what in our ignorance we call as the baby who starts taking infant step doesn't start running and climbing Mount Everest. There will be several so-called failures, falls, ups, downs, many things, challenges. That's how the evolutionary power works. The most uncomfortable creature, ugly if you want to call it, though there is nothing in essence ugly, is Archaeopteryx. Poor fellow is neither a snake nor a bird. It vanished. So there are going to be all these over the journey. Many things will happen. When the supramental force impacts the body, maybe even certain hidden things will come up, even illnesses, maybe a transition. Who knows? Children who already we see that schools have become redundant. So this is the third thing, endurance. And the fourth, she spoke about harmony. 4 aspects. So harmony, of course, we know is one of the most difficult things, but harmony within the different parts of our being. Harmony without, with the world, a new relation we'll form. No more on the basis of likes, dislikes, opinions, viewpoints, my caste, your caste, my language, your language, but on a deeper basis. The only basis of harmony can be the divine presence in all, because this harmony will not be sameness, the one divine presence, but expressing itself in multiple ways. So we'll accommodate both harmony as well as the variety, as well as we learn the right dealing in the manifestation with the different elements of creation. So this is, we are on an exciting journey, a wonderful journey. It's a lovely subject. As I said, it's burdened with many suggestions, but I want to just close with one of the readings. One is where Sri Aurobindo says, this man is a in several places in his essays, and he is a transitional being also in the life divine, where he doesn't speak of man is a transitional being, but he is a transitional being. And several places, the mother also speaks about it several times. This is one of the key works of Sri Aurobindo, that man will be exceeded, not only in terms of consciousness, but also in terms of form. And the challenge of this yoga is this, that with each ascent, the form has to adapt. Otherwise, it's not like escaping into some supramental world and with no base here. So here is what Sri Aurobindo writes. A Godhead is imprisoned in our depths, Krishna, in the prison. One in its being with a greater Godhead, ready to descend from superhuman summits. Man is a transitional being, and then he says that even if we perfect ourselves humanly, the limits of humanity, that's not enough, because that's not what is meant by superhumanity. Man's greatness is not in what he is. All our degrees and visiting card needs to be changed and changed into apprentice, working in the laboratory of God. True domicile, apprentice. Mother used the word apprentice, Superman, but that sounds too presumptuous. Visiting card, apprentice, Superman. Straight to the asylum. But apprentice. We are all apprentice. Who's apprentice? Her. She is teaching us things and we are apprentice. We are learning. The moment you say, we know, now we can teach. Teach what? Sri Aurobindo? Unfit. The moment we understand that there is no limit, he is infinite. Sri Aurobindo is as vast as the universe and his teaching is infinite. All that we can do is to love him and serve him, and all knowledge will rush like a sea. So he says man's greatness is not in what he is, but in what he makes possible. His glory is that he is the closed place and secret workshop of a living labor in which supermanhood is made ready by a divine craftsman. So let's not be putnas and stifle the dream of a child when he imagines beautiful world. Let's not tell him, but you have to get 90% in maths. Otherwise, you don't have a future. If he gets 90% in maths, maybe he doesn't have a future. But maybe, well, it's wonderful to do that. But maybe when he is not attracted to and to maths, it could be anything, biology, anything. Please, maths. Why? Because God is beyond calculation, so it applies. So okay. Every other branch has something open-ended. Biology is very open-ended. I'm not arguing in favor of, but maths is introduced zero and infinity, which should not forget. So open-ended. So a child says, I don't take interest in any of these things. So you are useless. Perhaps this child is that little Krishna who doesn't like to go to school, who is being very naughty. He loves to play the sport. And he is the one who is getting ready, who knows for the future. It's not the perfect ape that became man. Not Bali, but Sugriv. Just a little below. Who was bit sure, bit unsure. His life was kabhi haan, kabhi na. He is the one, because then he can take a leap. somebody who is very well, all man on top. Because to climb still further, he has to come down. He doesn't want to do that. He's very happy being on the top, this super specialized humanity. So this is what is, but he's at greater greatness. And it is this that, unlike the lower creation, he is allowed to be partly the conscious artisan of his divine change. It's not an unconscious process. That's where yoga steps in. We have to collaborate in the process. And the way of collaborating I've just spoken about. Two things we have to remember. Do not cling, thirst for progress. It's very secular. It's open-ended. And of course, if one can be like Krishna sitting in mother's lap, life is wonderful. Then we don't have to even try for the makhan. She will put the makhan all around. So this is the beauty. His free assent, his consecrated will and participation are needed, that into his body, mark the words. Man has to consent. This is the only problem with God that I find. He does not force himself. So many times you tell him, do it, sir. He says, no, if I do it, you will break down. You have to little bit, thoda sa to karna padega. Okay, what I have to do? At least surrender you have to do gladly and spontaneously. Do not imagine that the divine force will do even the surrender for you. Aspiration, we have to aspire. New creation is formed by the divine will, but we have to accept the divine will. We'll say, oh, why my life? Ye kya kiya dunya wale? I mean, all this we start doing, we get unsettled when the ground shakes below our feet. Not realizing that the ground shakes because the spacecraft is taking off. Sometimes even the ground shakes with a jolt. Okay, so anyways, his participation is needed, that into his body may descend the glory that will replace him. Replace. His aspiration is earth's call to the supramental creator. If earth calls and the supreme answers, the hour can be even now for that immense and glorious transformation. The mother identified with the earth and called. And we see the Supreme answered when she, 29th February 1956, she heard the command in English, the hour has come. So sweetly, the Lord, the Supreme answered. She became the earth and he becomes the Supreme, he opens the door. So what is our role? Receive it. That is a big role. Open to it. And that's what we see. So many passages. But I'll just read one more. Where is it gone? Yeah. So this is what the mother says. We have so many problems in life and everybody wants, is impatient, from Third World War to third world countries. Now that word has fortunately lost its meaning because we don't know now. So this is a conversation of the mother based on one of Sri Aurobindo's aphorisms. Wherefore he selected or made such a material when he had all infinite possibilities to choose from? Because of his divine idea, which saw before it not only beauty and sweetness and purity, but also force and will and greatness. That's why this hard material. See, the beauty of matter is this. Take a simple example. When matter takes a long time to receive, but once it receives it, the imprint remains. That's the basis of typewriting. But you have to relearn. The alphabets don't follow the order of ABCD. But once you learn it, after that doesn't matter. You are, looking here and there and doing it. This is the interesting aspect of matter. Why he chose this material? He could have chosen material of the God. This is the problem. That it won't have been as perfect as it can be through this divine idea. It force and will and greatness. See, this is the problem with gods and the titans. Titans are too hard, too crude. So they can manifest force and will and strength. Gods are too soft, too gentle, too, well-behaved fellows. So the Titans come and start beating them black and blue till they call, either Indra's thunderbolt comes in or he calls Mother Durga, rider on the lion, you come. Jagat Janani takes that form. But we have to be something in between. The matter of which we are made, though it bears the stamp of the crude, asuric, rakshasic contact, still it has within it a divine possibility. That's the Ramayana. Mother Sita to the Asura and then passing through the test of fire and regaining her pristine glory. Despise not force, nor hate it for the ugliness of some of its faces, nor think that love only is God. All perfect perfection must have something in it of the stuff of the hero and even of the Titan. But the greatest force is born out of the greatest difficulty. So Mother says something very beautiful. Very quickly, I'll wrap it up. After all, the whole problem is to know whether humanity has reached the state of pure gold or whether it still needs to be tested in the crucible. One thing is certain, humanity has not become pure gold. That is visible and certain. But something has happened in the world's history which allows us to hope. This something is the 29th February 1956, that a selected few in humanity, a small number of beings, perhaps are ready to be transformed into pure gold. And that they will be able to manifest, now mark the word, they'll be able to manifest strength without violence, heroism without destruction, and courage without catastrophe. This is what is needed. But in the very next paragraph, Sri Aurobindo gives the answer, this one-point solution to all the problems. Not like adjust this, find food grain shortage, this problem, all kinds of things. No, none of this. If man could once consent to be spiritualized, if only the individual could consent to be spiritualized, could consent, that's all she wants from us, a sincere yes. Some for it, aspires, and all the rest refuses, wants to continue to be what it is, the mixed ore which needs to be cast into the furnace. And in the furnace of suffering burns, more sweetness to deserve, more strength to gain. From his poem In the Moonlight, that he climbs, casting behind his ill and sin, but he has to burn through the furnace. At the moment, we are at a decisive turning point in the history of the earth, this late 50s, after the supramental manifestation. Once again, from every side I am asked, what is going to happen? 2 years back, it was Corona. 1 year back. Now it is kuch karo ya maro na. Now it is war. After some time, something else will come. She has given a solution right 50 years back. All these are halfway homes. Now we are learning the thing that we are learning, even through this Gori war, is all our imperfection of all our mental solutions. Form a united nation, but of the same human beings. Sri Aurobindo spoke about it in 19. And the mother said very blatantly that it's all playing in the hands of falsehood. So, way back. Look at the joke. Anybody can veto. Who are those? 5 feet, sometimes like a circus. You just enjoy watching it. It's like the dadagiri in a mohalla. It's nothing like that. I'll veto. So many things are getting exposed. It's not about this side being right or wrong. That's a different story. But we are learning the inadequacy of our mental solutions. And if we still go back in that direction, still another. So she says, what is going to happen? Everywhere there is anguish, expectation, fear. What is going to happen? There is only one reply: if only man could consent to be spiritualized. One shop solution, one shop stop. And perhaps it would be enough if some individuals became pure. It's not like a mass movement. Everybody suddenly, starts doing Bhaj Govinda, Bhaj Govinda. Not needed. Have the Govinda in the heart. Live that light. For this would be enough to change the course of events. She's giving us a solution, even of the present problem. Hasten on that path. Means not like impatiently. The one solution is those who are called upon the path, for them, the only solution is to go more and more in that direction. We are faced with this necessity in an urgent way, very urgent way. This courage, this heroism which the divine wants of us, why not use it to fight against one's own difficulties, one's own imperfections, one's own obscurities? Why not heroically face the furnace of inner purification? It's bound to come. बहुत कठिन है दगरपन खटकी. It's not. Several times the matki will puto. Who will puto it? Krishna. Watch. He's on the side. You think now I filled the gagar and I am carrying it. He is the one who will put. Why are you doing this, Krishna? It's not yet. This matki has to be made of a better material. Okay. We keep filling and he keeps following. The material must change. So she says, why not heroically face the furnace of inner purification? How do you make the matki better? In Vedas, it is mentioned two ways. One is to the tapas of yoga, purification. The other is furnace of suffering. Only two ways. Face the fire of aspiration and tapao it. All, bake. It has to be baked. That's how it becomes strong. Or else, suffering will make us either which way. So that it does not become necessary to pass once more through one of those terrible, gigantic destructions which plunge an entire civilization into darkness. This is the problem before us. It is for each one to solve it in his own way. There are no standard set patterns or methods of the yoga. We want it or we don't want it. We have faith in it or we don't have faith in it. That's all. We can open to it or we cannot open to it. That's all. No debate, discussion, and complicated things. This evening, I'm answering the questions I've been asked, and my reply is that of Sri Aurobindo. If man could once consent to be spiritualized, and I add, time presses from the human point of view. All that is required is a yes. We have the yes program. All the mother says is a sincere yes from your heart. And the rest will be done for us. Thank you.
Dr. Alok Pandey has done it again. And if I may start with what he said towards the end, if only we could consent to be spiritualized. And he has given that consent, obviously. And you can see that how much joy there is in saying that, yes, becoming an apprentice in the hands of the mother. Was so totally absorbed in it, and the way he was enjoying it. I mean, you saw how much better it is to be in a state of this total surrender and becoming an apprentice, being on the path of the tapas of yoga, and how much more enjoyable it is, especially when we compare it with the furnace of suffering. So just starting with one short sentence, man is a transitional being. He has shown how pregnant that 5 words simple sentence is, how much of the past and the future are both packed in that single sentence. Also given us some rare insights about why the gods use the beast as a vehicle, and why the vehicle of a new change, a new era, the way Krishna was, is a child, because it's the children who represent the future. So with these few remarks, I hand over to Aditi, who can see quickly how we can handle the questions which the audience might have, and also the questions which might be there in the chat.
Yes, so anybody who would like to ask a question can unmute and ask the question. So it seems there are no questions as of now.
Yes. Let's bathe in this. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Alokda, for joining. And just one little announcement for the people who have joined. We have started this series on Fridays. This is the first in the series. The next Friday, we will have a Bhajan Sandhya, an evening of devotional songs with Dr. Mithu Pal. So do join us at the same time, and we'll be sharing the details via email. And we end today with the meditation music. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining.
Shri Aravindah Sharanam Mama Shri Aravindah Sharanam Maharlok Maheshwar Murti Patalanam Prabhutapurti Jagatam Jyotirdharottamah Shri Aravindah Sharanam Mama प्रेम रसामृत सागर राज व्यदुड्डयन परायण वाज प्रेम रसामृत सागर राज व्यदुड्डयन परायण वाज त्रिजगत्राता त्रिविक्रमः पृथ्वी प्राणेश्वर पुरुषार्थी तपः सिद्धसत्त्वः सकलार्थी गुरु गुरवे स्मै नमो नमः गुरु गुरवे अस्मै नमो नमः श्री अरविन्दः शरणं मम महर्लोकमाहेश्वरमूर्तिः पातालानां प्रभुतापूर्तिः जगतां ज्योतिर्धरोत्तमः श्रेयरविन्दः शरणं मम श्रेयरविन्दः शरणं मम श्रेयरविन्दः शरणं